The autumn night wrapped around Pine Ridge Forest like a cold blanket. Tom Miller sat in his park ranger truck, warming his hands with a cup of coffee while checking the time on his dashboard. 11:47 p.m. He had just 2 more hours left in his shift, and the forest was quiet except for the usual sounds of owls and the wind rustling through the trees. Tom took another sip of his coffee and started his engine. He needed to complete one final patrol around the eastern trail before calling it a night. The truck's headlights cut through the darkness as he drove slowly along the dirt road, watching for any signs of campers or wildlife. That's when he heard it. A cry echoed through the trees, high-pitched and haunting. Tom hit the brakes, cutting the engine to listen more carefully. At first, he thought it might be a mountain lion, but something about the sound was different. It seemed almost human, but not quite right. The crying came again, clearer this time. It was definitely a woman's voice, but there was something odd about it. The sound had a strange echo, almost like it was coming through water. Tom grabbed his flashlight and radio, his heart beginning to pound. Protocol said he should call for backup, but something in that cry made his skin prickle with urgency. "This is Ranger Miller," he spoke into his radio. "I'm checking out a possible distress call near marker 47 on the Eastern Trail. Over." He waited for the static-filled acknowledgement from dispatch before stepping out of his truck. The moment his boots touched the ground, Tom noticed something strange. The air felt different, thicker somehow, like the heaviness before a storm. His flashlight beam seemed to bend slightly, creating odd shadows among the trees. Even the crickets had gone silent. Another cry pierced the night, closer now. Tom started walking, his boots crunching on fallen leaves. His flashlight caught something unusual on a tree trunk, a faint, bluish glow that seemed to fade as soon as he pointed his light at it. He'd worked these woods for 7 years and had never seen anything like it. His radio crackled, making him jump. Instead of dispatch's voice, he heard only a high-pitched whine. Tom tried to respond, but the radio just squealed with static. He switched it off, not wanting the noise to mask any more cries for help. The temperature seemed to drop with each step he took deeper into the forest. His breath came out in visible puffs, unusual for an autumn night. Tom's hand instinctively went to the pepper spray on his belt, useful against bears and mountain lions, but something told him he might be dealing with neither. The crying grew louder, but now he could hear words mixed in with the sobs. The language was like nothing he'd ever heard before, flowing and musical, but definitely not human. Tom's rational mind told him to turn back, to wait for backup, to follow procedure. But 20 years of search and rescue experience had taught him that sometimes waiting meant losing lives. He pushed through a thick patch of undergrowth and found himself in a small clearing. His flashlight beam caught something that made him freeze mid-step. Small points of light, like fireflies, but too bright and too still, hung in the air. They formed a trail leading deeper into the woods. The crying stopped abruptly. In the sudden silence, Tom could hear his own heartbeat drumming in his ears. His flashlight beam flickered, then died, but the strange lights provided enough illumination to see by. They seemed to pulse gently, almost like they were breathing. "Hello," Tom called out, his voice steady despite his racing heart. "This is Park Ranger Miller. I'm here to help. Are you hurt?" The response he got wasn't what he expected. A soft glow began to emanate from beyond the trees, and with it came a sound that made every hair on his body stand on end. A voice that couldn't possibly be human, speaking words that shouldn't exist on Earth. Tom Miller took a deep breath, squared his shoulders, and stepped toward the light. Whatever was waiting in these woods needed help, and that's exactly what he was going to provide. The strange lights led Tom through a maze of trees until he reached another clearing. What he saw there made him stop dead in his tracks. A figure knelt on the forest floor, surrounded by a soft, pearl-like glow. As Tom watched, she raised her head, and his world changed forever. She looked almost human, but not quite. Her skin had a subtle shimmer to it, like mother of pearl in moonlight. Her eyes were slightly larger than a human's, their color shifting between deep purple and midnight blue. What looked like tears rolled down her cheeks, but they gave off a faint phosphorescent glow. Tom's training kicked in despite his shock. He could see she was injured. She held her arm at an awkward angle, and there were scratches on her face that leaked a silvery substance he assumed was blood. "It's okay," he said softly, holding up his empty hands to show he meant no harm. "I'm here to help." The alien woman, because that's what she had to be, spoke again in that musical language. Then she touched something near her throat, and her next words came out in English, though with an odd echoing quality. "You are not afraid?" she asked, her voice carrying both pain and surprise. Tom took a careful step forward. "I'm more concerned about your injuries than what you are, or where you're from. I'm a park ranger. Helping people is my job." He kept his voice steady and calm, just as he would with an injured hiker. "My name is May," she said, wincing as she tried to move. "My ship, there was an accident. Space debris. I had to make an emergency landing." Tom knelt beside her, keeping his movements slow and deliberate. Up close, he could see that her clothes seemed to be made of some kind of flowing material that shifted colors like oil on water. "I'm Tom. Can you tell me where you're hurt?" "My arm is broken," May said, "and my ship's atmospheric adjusters were damaged. Your world is colder than I'm used to." Tom noticed she was shivering. Without hesitation, he took off his ranger jacket and draped it over her shoulders. "This should help with the cold. May I check your arm?" May nodded, watching him with those strange, shifting eyes. As Tom gently examined her arm, he noticed her skin was several degrees warmer than a human's. The break seemed clean, at least. "I have a first aid kit in my truck," he said, "but I'm guessing human medical supplies might not be the best for you. Do you have any medical equipment in your ship?" "Yes, but—" May's voice trailed off as a distant sound echoed through the trees. "Helicopter rotors." Her expression changed to one of fear. "They're coming. They can't find me." "Who's coming?" Tom asked, already helping her to her feet. "My people's security force," May explained quickly. "They don't want contact with Earth yet. They think humans are too." She paused, searching for the word. "Unpredictable." Tom looked at the frightened alien woman, then at the growing sound of helicopters. In that moment, he made a decision that would change not just his life, but potentially the relationship between two species. "My cabin is about 2 miles from here," he said firmly. "It's off the main trails, and I know ways to get there without being spotted. We can treat your injuries there and figure out our next move." May's eyes widened. "You would help me, even knowing what I am?" Tom gave her a reassuring smile. "You're someone who needs help. That's all I need to know. Can you walk?" May nodded, and as Tom helped her up, he caught a glimpse of something metallic through the trees, what had to be her crashed ship. But there was no time to investigate. The helicopters were getting closer, and somewhere in the distance, he could hear vehicles approaching. "This way," Tom said, guiding May toward a barely visible deer trail. "And watch your step. The ground's uneven here." As they disappeared into the darkness, the strange lights that had led Tom to May followed them, providing just enough illumination to light their way through the forest night. The walk to Tom's cabin took longer than usual. May struggled with the rough terrain, and her shivering had gotten worse. The helicopters had passed overhead twice, but the thick forest canopy and Tom's knowledge of hidden paths kept them concealed. Finally, a small wooden cabin came into view. Tom helped May up the 3 steps to his porch, quickly unlocked the door, and guided her inside. The cabin was simple but warm, with a small fireplace, a kitchen area, and basic furniture. "Your dwelling is primitive," May said, then quickly added, "I'm sorry. That was rude." Tom laughed as he helped her to his couch. "No offense taken. Compared to a spaceship, it probably is primitive, but it's warm and safe." He moved to the fireplace and started building a fire. Your body temperature is much higher than ours, isn't it? May nodded, pulling his ranger jacket tighter around herself. My species evolved on a warmer world. Your Earth is beautiful, but very cold for us. She watched with fascination as Tom lit the fire. You still use combustion for heat. Sometimes the old ways work best, Tom replied, adding another log. Now, about that arm. You said your ship has medical supplies. May's expression darkened. Yes, but we can't go back there. The security force will be guarding it by now. She reached into a hidden pocket in her clothes with her good arm and pulled out something that looked like a silver pen. But I managed to grab this before I ran. It's a basic medical tool. Tom watched in amazement as she pointed the device at her broken arm. A soft blue light emerged from its tip, and he could see her arm glowing faintly beneath her skin. This will help with the pain and start the healing, May explained. But it will take time. She lowered the device and looked at Tom with those strange, shifting eyes. Why are you helping me? Most species would have run away or tried to capture me. Tom sat down in the chair across from her. You know, we humans have a saying. The true test of civilization is how we treat those in need. When I heard you crying, I didn't hear an alien. I heard someone who needed help. May was quiet for a moment, studying him. We've been watching Earth for a long time, she finally said. Many of my people believe humans are too violent, too unpredictable to make contact with. But others, like me, see something different. We see how you help each other during disasters, how you risk your lives for strangers, how you show kindness to other species on your world. A sudden burst of radio chatter made them both jump. Tom's Ranger radio, forgotten on his belt, crackled to life. All units, be advised. Military personnel are taking over operations in sectors 7 through 12. All civilian personnel are to evacuate immediately. Repeat, evacuate immediately. Tom switched off the radio and looked at May. Your security force isn't the only one we need to worry about now. Our military will be searching too. This is my fault, May said, her voice trembling. I've put you in danger. If they find you helping me. Hey, Tom interrupted gently. I made my choice, and I'd make it again. He stood up and went to check the windows, making sure the curtains were fully closed. Besides, I've worked in these woods for years. I know places they'll never think to look. May's eyes seemed to glow brighter for a moment. You don't understand. I'm not just a random visitor who crashed. I'm part of something bigger, something that could change both our worlds. Tom returned to his chair, leaning forward with interest. Then I think it's time you told me what's really going on. We've got a long night ahead of us, and if I'm going to help you, I need to know what we're dealing with. Outside, the sound of helicopters grew distant, then faded entirely. But both Tom and May knew this was just the beginning. The real challenges and revelations were yet to come. The peace of Tom's cabin didn't last long. Just as May was about to explain her true mission, a bright searchlight swept across the windows. Despite the thick curtains, they both froze. They're sweeping the area systematically, May whispered, her alien eyes reflecting the dim firelight. Both your military and my security force have technology that can detect heat signatures. Tom quickly moved into action, grabbing his backpack from a hook near the door. The old mining tunnels, he said, throwing some supplies into the bag. They run deep under these hills. The rocks contain minerals that interfere with scanning equipment. A vehicle's engine rumbled nearby, followed by the sound of car doors slamming. May stood up, steadier now thanks to her medical device, but still holding her injured arm close to her body. Tom, she said urgently, if they catch you helping me, your life as you know it will be over. My life as I know it ended the moment I heard you crying in the forest. Tom replied with a slight smile. No going back now. Here, put these on. He handed her a pair of hiking boots. They were too big, but better than her strange, shimmering footwear for what lay ahead. Just then, they heard voices outside. Flashlight beams danced across the curtains. "This way," Tom whispered, leading May to what looked like a storage closet. He pushed aside some boxes, revealing a trapdoor. The old owner of this cabin was a bit paranoid. Built escape routes everywhere. Lucky for us. They descended into darkness just as someone knocked on the cabin's front door. Tom quietly closed the trapdoor above them, and they heard muffled voices asking about unusual sightings. The tunnel was narrow and low, forcing them to crouch as they moved. Tom's flashlight revealed rough-hewn walls supported by old timber beams. The air was cool and damp, smelling of earth and time. "How can you navigate down here?" May asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've explored these tunnels for years," Tom answered. "They're part of an old gold mining operation. Most people have forgotten about them, but I've mapped them all." He paused at a junction, considering their options. "We need to head east. There's an exit near Crystal Creek, about 2 miles from here." They moved as quickly as they could through the darkness. May's natural bioluminescence provided an extra bit of light, her skin giving off a faint pearly glow. The tunnel gradually sloped downward, taking them deeper underground. Suddenly, they heard a distant rumble. The ground vibrated beneath their feet. "They're using ground-penetrating radar," May said, her face showing concern. "The security force has equipment that can map these tunnels." "Then we'll have to be smarter than their equipment," Tom replied. He led them down a side tunnel that seemed particularly unstable. This section partially collapsed last spring. The debris should scatter their signals. They pressed on, the sound of their breathing and footsteps echoing softly off the walls. Tom noticed May was shivering less underground, where the temperature remained constant. After 20 minutes of careful navigation through the maze-like tunnels, they reached a chamber where several passages intersected. Tom held up his hand, signaling May to stop. Above them, they could hear the distant thrum of helicopters. "We have 2 choices," Tom whispered. "The eastern exit is closest, but they'll expect that. The northern exit is harder to reach, but it comes out near a series of waterfalls. The falling water will mask our heat signatures." Before May could answer, they heard something that made their blood run cold, voices echoing from one of the tunnels behind them. The pursuit had followed them underground. "Choose quickly," May said, her alien eyes wide with fear. "They're getting closer." Tom looked at both tunnels, then at May, knowing their next choice could mean the difference between escape and capture. Above them, the helicopters grew louder, and somewhere in the darkness behind them, flashlight beams began to dance on the tunnel walls. Tom made his decision quickly. "The waterfall route," he whispered, grabbing May's good hand. "Trust me." They hurried down the northern tunnel, the sounds of pursuit growing louder behind them. The passage twisted and turned, gradually sloping upward. Tom's knowledge of the tunnels proved invaluable as he led them through a maze of intersections. "Wait," May said suddenly, pulling them to a stop. She reached into her pocket and pulled out another device, this one looking like a small crystal. "I need to tell you something, and we're running out of time." The crystal lit up at her touch, projecting a holographic image into the air between them. Tom saw a massive spaceship, far larger than what he imagined May had crashed in. "I'm not just a researcher," May said, her voice tight with urgency. "I'm part of the Contact Initiative. We believe it's time for our peoples to meet officially." The hologram changed, showing various scenes of human history. "For centuries, we've watched Earth. Some of us see humanity's potential for growth, for compassion, for overcoming its own darkness." The pursuing voices echoed closer. Tom kept glancing back down the tunnel, but he knew this information was important. "Others," May continued, "see only your wars, your environmental damage, your conflicts. They want to quarantine Earth, prevent any contact for another century at least." She looked at Tom intently. "My mission was to gather final evidence to support open contact. But the opposition found out. They sabotaged my ship, hoping to prevent." A shout from nearby cut her off. Tom quickly pulled them into a small alcove, pressing against the rough wall as flashlight beams swept past their hiding spot. "You're helping me," May whispered once the lights had passed. "Proves everything we've been saying about humans. You didn't know who or what I was. You just heard someone in distress and came to help." Tom smiled despite their dire situation. "That's just being human." "Exactly," May said earnestly. "That's what my people need to understand. Your capacity for kindness, even to strangers, even to those who are different, it's remarkable." A new sound echoed through the tunnels, voices speaking in May's musical language, followed by responses in English. The two groups pursuing them had joined forces. "They're working together?" Tom asked, surprise. May's expression darkened. "The opposition convinced your military that I'm a threat. They're lying to both our peoples to prevent contact." They started moving again, faster now. The tunnel began to slope steeply upward, and Tom could hear the distant sound of rushing water. "There's something else," May said as they climbed. "My crash wasn't an accident, but neither was your finding me. We chose this location because our scans showed you worked here. We've been watching you, Tom Miller. Your actions, your kindness to lost hikers, your dedication to protecting both the forest and its visitors. You represented the best of humanity." Tom processed this revelation as they reached a fork in the tunnel. The sound of waterfalls was louder now. "So I was part of your test?" he asked, pausing to catch his breath. "No," May replied firmly. "You were our hope, and you proved us right. Everything you've done since hearing my cry in the forest, it's all been recorded and transmitted to my world's council. Your actions tonight might change the future of both our species." The pursuit was getting closer. Tom could hear them organizing search parties for different tunnels. "Well then," he said, straightening up, "let's make sure your council sees humanity at its best. The waterfall exit is just ahead, but what comes next is going to be tricky. Are you ready?" May nodded, her alien eyes glowing with determination. "Lead the way, Tom Miller. Show my people who humanity really is." The roar of the waterfall grew louder as Tom and May emerged from the tunnel into the cold night air. Moonlight filtered through the mist, creating rainbow-like patterns in the spray. The waterfall thundered down beside them, its powerful flow masking their heat signatures from the searching helicopters above. "There's a narrow path behind the waterfall," Tom shouted over the noise. "It leads to a hidden cave system. Your people won't expect us to go through the water." May pulled out her crystal communicator. "I need to send one last transmission before we go. The council needs to see this." The device hummed to life, projecting a soft light that pulsed in rhythm with her words. Suddenly, bright spotlights illuminated the cliff face from above and below. They were surrounded. Military vehicles had somehow reached the base of the waterfall, while helicopters hovered at eye level with their position on the cliff. From both directions, voices ordered them to surrender. Tom stepped in front of May protectively, his body shielding her from the harsh lights. Through the glare, he could see figures in both military uniforms and sleek, otherworldly suits approaching from multiple directions. "This is your final warning," a voice boomed from one of the helicopters. "Hand over the alien infiltrator." May touched Tom's shoulder. "You've done enough," she said softly. "Let me surrender. There's no need for you to sacrifice everything." But Tom stood his ground. "Your people are watching, right?" he asked, not taking his eyes off the approaching forces. "Then let them see this." He raised his voice to address both groups. "I'm Tom Miller, Park Ranger of Pine Ridge Forest. This woman came to Earth in peace. She was injured and asked for help. That's all I needed to know." One of the alien figures stepped forward, their suit glowing with an intimidating blue light. "This is not your concern, human. Step aside." "Actually, it is my concern," Tom replied firmly. "You're in my forest, and in this forest, we help those in need. We don't hand them over to people who want to hurt them." May's crystal pulsed brighter, capturing every word. The alien figure seemed taken aback by Tom's defiance. "You don't understand the complexities of interspecies relations," the figure said. This is bigger than one human's misguided compassion. Tom laughed, the sound echoing off the cliff walls. No, you don't understand humans. We don't need to understand everything to know right from wrong. May needed help. I helped. It's that simple. The military forces had reached their position now, weapons trained on them. The alien security force moved closer from the other side. They were trapped between the waterfall and their pursuers. May stepped up beside Tom, her injured arm glowing faintly from her medical device. "The Council is watching everything," she announced, her voice carrying despite the waterfall's roar. "They see how one human, without any weapons or advanced technology, stands against both his own military and an alien force to protect someone in need. Is this not exactly what we hoped to find?" The alien figure faltered, their suits glow-dimming slightly. Among the military personnel, Tom noticed some uncertain glances being exchanged. "Sometimes," Tom said, his voice clear and steady, "the right choice is the simple one. I won't let you hurt her. If you want May, you'll have to go through me first." A tense silence fell, broken only by the constant thunder of the waterfall. In that moment, as humans and aliens faced each other on a misty cliff in the middle of the night, the future of both species hung in the balance, and it all depended on one park ranger's unwavering stand for what he believed was right. Just as the tension reached its peak, May's crystal began to pulse with an intense light. A holographic image appeared above them, larger than before, showing what appeared to be a council chamber. 12 alien figures, their features similar to May's but more distinguished, looked down upon the scene. "We have seen enough," a voice echoed from the projection, speaking in both May's musical language and English. "Stand down, security force. Your opposition to contact has been overruled." The alien figures in their glowing suits hesitated, then slowly lowered their weapons. The military forces, receiving rapid communications through their radios, also began to stand down. "Tom Miller," the council voice continued, "you have demonstrated the very essence of what we hoped to find on Earth. In one night, you have shown courage, compassion, and an unwavering moral compass, without knowing anything about the larger context of your actions." Tom finally relaxed his protective stance, though he stayed close to May. "I just did what anyone should do," he said simply. A ripple of what sounded like laughter came from the council. "And that, Park Ranger Miller, is precisely why Earth is ready. Your kind helps first and asks questions later. While this can sometimes lead to trouble, it is also your greatest strength." The night sky suddenly lit up as a massive ship descended through the clouds, its presence somehow both overwhelming and graceful. It was nothing like the small craft May had crashed in. This was clearly a diplomatic vessel. The opposition claimed humans were too violent, too unpredictable for contact. May explained, smiling at Tom. But they failed to understand that these same traits, properly channeled, make humans uniquely suited for joining the galactic community. Your adaptability, your willingness to face the unknown, your instinct to help, these are rare and precious qualities. Military vehicles were now being replaced by what looked like diplomatic units. Men and women in suits were arriving, looking both bewildered and excited. The council spoke again. "We propose that this location, Pine Ridge Forest, become the site of Earth's first alien embassy, and we can think of no better person to serve as Earth's first unofficial ambassador than the man who showed us humanity's true nature." Tom looked around in amazement. The sun was beginning to rise, its first rays catching the waterfall's spray and creating brilliant rainbows. In just one night, everything had changed. "What do you say, Tom?" May asked, her alien eyes shining with hope. "Will you help us build a bridge between our worlds?" Tom looked at the waterfall, the forest he had protected for so many years, and then at the incredible scene around him. Alien ships, diplomatic vehicles, and the dawning of a new era for humanity. "Well," he said with a smile, "helping people find their way is part of my job description. I suppose that can include helping two species find their way to understanding each other. The council's approval was evident in their posture. Then let it be recorded that on this day, official contact between Earth and the Lumari people began, not with treaties or technology exchanges, but with a simple act of kindness in a forest at night. May stepped forward and took Tom's hand. "Thank you," she said softly, "for hearing my cry and caring enough to help." "You know," Tom replied, watching as humans and aliens began to mingle cautiously below them, "I think this forest is going to need a few new trail markers." The sunrise continued to paint the sky in brilliant colors, marking not just the dawn of a new day, but the dawn of a new chapter in human history. And it all started because one park ranger chose to help someone in need, without stopping to ask if they were from this world or another. Sometimes, the simplest choices change everything.